All right, a very good morning to you from Abuja. I thank God for the privilege to be part of this um, annual ministers and workers retreat. I want to start by appreciating my president, Apostle Dr. Glory Udoema, for believing in me and reposing confidence in me and asking me to be one of the speakers in this conference. I want to apologize for not being able to make it at this time, but I'm joining up online. The theme of our retreat is strength for speed. Strength for speed. And I'm speaking on running to obtain the prize, the power of focus and discipline. Running to obtain the prize, the power of focus and discipline. Running to obtain the prize, the power of focus and discipline. Okay, my text is from First Corinthians chapter 9 verse 24 to 27. Let's pray. Father, thank you for yet another opportunity to speak your word. I pray that you speak to us by your spirit in Jesus' name. First Corinthians chapter 9 verse 24 to 27. First Corinthians 9 24 to 27. I read, know ye not that they which run in a race run all, but one receiveth the prize. So run that ye may obtain. And every man that striveth for the mastery is temperate in all things. Now they do it to obtain a corruptible crown, but we an incorruptible. I therefore so run, not as uncertainty, so fight I, not as one that beateth the air, but I keep under my body and bring it into subjection, lest that by any means when I have preached to others, I myself should be a cast away. So I'm talking on running to obtain the prize, the power of focus and discipline. Now I'll be tailoring my message to Restoration Ministry International. I believe I'm talking to branch pastors, I'm talking to leaders in various departments and units and fellowships. And I want you to know that if we are going to have speed this year, and if we are going to obtain the prize this year, then we must understand that we must run with focus and run with discipline. Now, in a race, for quite some of us that were engaged in athletics during the school inter-house sports when we're in nursery and secondary schools, you will understand that before you run a race, you don't just go to the track to run a race. Your house master or the trainer or the coach will come and speak to you people and tell you some basic things you need to know. You'll be told that, okay, when it's time for the inter-house sport that day, you'll be told the kind of food to eat. You'll be told how to keep yourself fit. You'll be told the rules of the game, how you are going to run. You don't run before the sound of the gun or the whistle or the beagle. So you must wait until the umpire blows the whistle before you begin to run. And then you are told that you must run in your track. All these things are part of the rudiments, the rules of the game. So if you're going to be successful this year in ministry as a branch pastor, if you're going to make impact in ministry this year and make the most of your ministry this year, then you must understand that there are some rules to be kept. There are some rules and regulations. That's why we're talking about focus and discipline. Let me quickly, I'll start by handling focus, then I'll start by handling discipline, and then I'll conclude. So, what is focus? Simply put, focus is a central point of attraction, attention, or activity. A central point of attraction, attention, or activity. Now, it therefore means this year, as a branch pastor, for instance, you must focus all your attraction, attention on your branch, on how to make that branch work. I want us as a ministry this year to desire great things. By the grace of God, in a matter of few days, this ministry is going to be 35 years old. And in the natural, a 35-year-old is an adult who, if not for some reasons, at least for a man, we should be expecting that a 35-year-old man should be married. We are expecting that a 35-year-old man should be able to take care of himself. Unfortunately, at least in Nigeria, due to some factors and reasons, most of these things are not really the way they should be. Now, a 35-year-old ministry must not operate like a 5-year-old ministry. So there are things that we are trusting God for in this new season. And so we must do away with some things that we did in the past that did not allow us to enter the fullness of God for our lives. Apostle Paul said, when I was a child, I thought like a child, I spoke like a child, I reason like a child, but now that I'm a man, I put away childish things. And so now that God has brought us to 35 years, we need to put away certain things that will not allow us to get to the optimum, to the zenith of that which God has for us. So we must be really focused this year in our ministry, in our branches, see how to make the ministry work, see how to make the churches grow. That should be our focus, our central focus this year. A few quotes on focus. Alexander Graham Bell said, concentrate all your thoughts upon the work at hand. The sun's rays do not burn until brought to a focus. So this year we are going to concentrate all our energy on the work. Apostle Paul was speaking to Pastor Timothy. He said to him, give thyself wholly, that thy profiting may appear unto all men. So your profiting in ministry, your greatness in ministry, your impact in ministry is a product and a function of your focus and commitment to your assignment. In the book of Ecclesiastes, Solomon said, whatever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. Whatever thy hand findeth to do, do it with all thy might. For there is no work nor knowledge in the grave. Zig Ziglar said, lack of direction, not lack of time, is a problem. We all have 24 hours. Nobody has 25 hours, everybody has 24 hours, and nobody has 23 hours. But it looks like some people are making more impact than others is because of how they've decided to focus on the assignment. I think Malcolm Gladwell propounded the theory of the 10,000 hours, that to become an authority in your field, any field for that matter, you must have invested at least 10,000 hours into that field. And so I subscribe to that theory. There are arguments against that theory, but as a person, I believe in that theory. You must give yourself wholly to the ministry. You must not allow anything to distract you. What is distraction? Because distraction is the opposite of focus. Our daddy, Apostle Mfon Udoema, used to define distraction as attraction in the wrong direction. Yes, that's how daddy used to define distraction. He said distraction is attraction in the wrong direction. Now, I define distraction as giving attention to what was not your original intention. Giving attention to what was not your original intention. So you combine this definition and combine my definition, you realize that distraction is a total divergence from your original course or purpose or vision or mission. Attraction in the wrong direction. Like the story of that man. They brought a prisoner and told him, keep this man. If this man goes, your life goes. And then in that parable, he said, as I was busy here and there, the man escaped. As I was busy here and there. God does not want you to be a here and there person. He wants you to be focused. Let your eyes be single. This year, let our minds be focused on the assignment. Be focused on how to make your branch better. Be focused on how to make your department better. Roy Bennett said, what you stay focused on will grow. Roy Bennett also said, everyone's time is limited. What matters most is to focus on what matters most. What matters most is to focus on what matters most. It's wrong to spend your major time on minor things. Okay? George Lucas says your focus determines your reality. Now, there are 4 major areas of focus we are going to be focused on this year as a ministry. Number 1, as a branch pastor, as a departmental leader, as a worker, be focused on the spiritual growth of the church. Be focused on the spiritual growth of the church, on the spiritual growth of your life, on the spiritual growth of your department. Be focused on the spiritual growth. Make sure, like our mama will always say, our president, the spiritual temple. Let us make sure that this year we keep the fire burning. The outpouring must be sustained. The fire shall ever be burning. The fire shall not go out. And the priest shall burn wood every morning. Let us endeavor to keep the bond of the Spirit. Number two, we must focus on the numerical growth of the church this year. Every church, starting from the headquarters, should grow. The other time I saw the video of the London church, and I was so impressed. That is what it should be. Every church should grow. Every church should grow. Headquarters should grow, London Church should grow, Covenant Arena, former Premier Branch should grow, Leaders Parish Akwabuyo should grow, all the churches should grow in leaps and in bounds. Thank God, here in Abuja, we've started recording growth because of some things I decided to put in place as the Holy Spirit gave me guidance, and it's working. We must focus on the numerical growth of the church. We must spend time to pray for church growth. We must be involved and engaged in evangelism. Let us not diffuse our energy this year. Let us conserve our energy and concentrate our focus on growth. Number three, we must focus on the financial growth of the church. I say four major areas of focus this year. Number one, we must focus on the spiritual growth of the church. Number two, we must focus on the numerical growth of the church. Number three, we must focus on the financial growth of the church, and because it takes money to drive ministry. It takes money to drive ministry. And God's work, God done God's way, should not lack God's wealth. So every branch pastor, every head of department, you must know how to increase the finances of your branch or your department. We must not wait on headquarters for everything so that our president can live long. So number four, we must focus on acquiring land and buildings this year. Lands and buildings. To be, our daddy used to tell us that a Roman Catholic priest once said, to be landed is to be grounded, and to be grounded is to be landed. When you have land, then you are now sure of ministry. Somebody once said that until you have land, you are not yet actively in ministry. Because even if your church is a church of 1,000 people and it's on a rented property, anything can happen to dislodge and scatter that church. But one of the things that gives a church permanence and gives a church authority in a territory is when that church has its property. So let's trust God that this year all branches will own land. I'm actually trusting God that between this year and next year, Abuja should have a land, Port Harcourt should have a land, Uyo should have a land. That should be your own thought pattern. That should be your focus this year. All right, let's go to discipline quickly. What is the meaning of discipline? I take a definition from Cambridge Dictionary. Discipline is to carefully control the way that you work, live, or behave, especially to achieve a goal. To carefully control the way that you work, live, or behave, especially to achieve a goal. That is discipline from the Cambridge Dictionary. From the Collins Dictionary, discipline is the quality of being able to behave and work in a controlled way which involves obeying particular rules or standards. Apostle Paul said, I put my body under subjection. I put my body under subjection. Apostle Paul said, all things are lawful, but all things are not expedient. So discipline is being a law to yourself. To me, I think that's the best definition. Discipline is being a law to yourself. Discipline is doing what you ought to do when you ought to do it, the way you ought to do it without supervision. Discipline is doing what you ought to do when you ought to do it and how you ought to do it without needing any form of supervision. Let's take a few quotes on self-discipline. Albert Hubbard says self-discipline is the ability to make yourself do what you should do when you should do it, whether you feel like doing it or not. Henry Ward Beecher said, hold yourself responsible for a higher standard than anybody else expects of you. Never excuse yourself. Never pity yourself. Be a hard master to yourself. George Washington said, discipline is the soul of an army. It makes small numbers formidable. It procures success to the weak and esteem to all. Jim Rohn said, discipline is the bridge between goals and accomplishment. All right, so let me talk about three major areas of discipline in ministry this year that we ought to look at. Number one is what I call moral discipline. And this entails majorly two things. Number one, live a life of consecration. This year, let us commit ourselves to a life of consecration, a life of holiness. Let us not be carried away with the erroneous teachings going on in the world today that no matter what we do, it doesn't affect our walk with God. that all judgment have been concluded on Christ, so we can live anyhow. No. In Romans 6, verse 1 and 2, Apostle Paul asks a question. Apostle Paul, being the greatest apostle and proponent of grace in the New Testament, he says, shall we continue in sin that grace may abound? God forbid. Iniquity short circuits the flow of the hand of God and the power of God. Let us make up our minds to live a life of consecration this year. Now, under moral discipline number 2, we have to live a life of integrity and honesty. Let your word be your bond this year. Let us endeavor to ensure that somebody can trust you, somebody can repose confidence in you this year, especially as a minister and as a leader. There are some things that should not be mentioned, should not be heard. Apostle Paul was speaking to the Corinthian church. He said, I heard that there is fornication among you, such as should not be mentioned, that is not even the type that is even heard among unbelievers, that a man should sleep with his father's wife, his stepmother. Now, let's have integrity to the point this year that let us not make church a cash point. Assuming you are to buy something for the church and it costs 40,000, you now give a bill of 65,000. I hope such things don't happen, but if they've been happening, let the last one be the last. Don't go to buy something for church, it costs 300,000 and you put 400,000. Those kind of things don't lead to prosperity. It's not breakthrough, it's a breakdown. Now, let me tell you something about church finance many people don't know. Most times when people bring money to church, it's not money they are bringing. Let's say maybe somebody has been married 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, no child in the marriage, and she starts praying and crying and say, God, give me a child. And maybe in the course of that, she say, Lord, I'm making this pledge that as I drop this on your altar as a memorial, remember me. She now withdraws the last 100,000 naira in her account and brings to church and drops in the offertory or gives it to the president. Now, what that woman dropped is not money. It's 6 years barrenness that she dropped. Maybe somebody just received a medical report diagnosing the person of cancer, and the person said, and they told the person the way the thing has gone very far, we are afraid that you may not live beyond 6 months. And then the person has 500,000 in his account, and then just withdraws the whole 500,000 and drops it as a sacrifice. Say, Lord, help me. Now, what that person dropped was not 500,000 naira; it was cancer the person dropped. And so when you come to get money from church in a false way, something costs 400,000 and you said 500,000, and maybe somebody just dropped a sacrifice of 500,000 saying, God, give me of this cancer. Now, and they took the 500,000 and gave to you. What was given to you was not 500,000 naira. It was cancer that was given to you. So a lot of people don't know the reason why they suffer some of the things they suffer with all the monies they've stolen from church, and then they now have problem upon problem upon problem. Let us have integrity and honesty this year. Number 2 is financial discipline. As a branch pastor, as a head of unit, as a head of department, please make sure you don't touch God's money. God's money is not your money. Financial discipline is important. So what do you do under financial discipline? Number 1, separate your personal finance from ministry finance. Yes, it's true that most times leaders will have to give more into the work of the Lord in their unit, but anything you are giving, let it be recorded. Let it be recorded. Church money is not your money. Departmental money is not your money. People have died because of spending God's money. Ananias and Sapphira died because of money-related issues in church. The sons of Hophni and Phinehas died because of money-related issues in church. Number 2, set up the finance unit. Set up the finance unit with care and with wisdom, prayerfully. Trust God and set it up. As a pastor, it's not proper for you to be the one keeping the money except the church is just starting, so that you'll not be tempted. As a head of unit, you should not be the one keeping the money. So set up the finance unit. Record all the income of your branch or unit. Have a documented finance policy. You don't operate by politics, you operate by policy. If you want to last, it's part of discipline. Let there be policy guiding everything about finances. Then you operate by budget. So embrace budgeting and budgetary controls. Embrace frugality. Frugality is seeking the least expensive ways to do things. Now, even though we are to promote excellence, we should also see how we can achieve excellence within reasonable cost. We should see how we can do ministry within reasonable cost, so that there can always be money for projects saved in the branch or in the department. Then block loopholes and curb waste. and then do periodic internal audits. Don't just allow finance people to just be on their own from time to time, maybe quarterly. Get the books and look into it to know what is going on. And finally, ministerial discipline. In ministerial discipline, number one, understand ministerial ethics. Every job, every profession has ethics and etiquette of the job. Understand ministerial ethics and etiquette. There are things you should not do as a pastor. The other time, a branch pastor in our ministry complained to me and reported another branch pastor in the same restoration ministry to me. He did a program and asked that the branch pastor should come to minister in his branch. And he said after the program, the branch pastor started calling members from his branch to come to his own branch and started fixing prayers and counseling for them. That's very wrong. And recently, I've heard complaint that branch pastors are now coming to the headquarters to fish for members into the branches. We tell the people, what are you doing in headquarters? Headquarters is full, come and join us. That's very wrong. Except the headquarters recommends people to join you. It is wrong for you as a branch pastor to go and fish from the headquarters. These are things that are against ministerial ethics. If you host someone in your branch and the person comes to minister, endeavor to take good care of the person. Make sure you plan for programs before inviting people. There are so many things. I'm not talking ministerial ethics today. Number two, and the last, don't ever minister without adequate preparation. All your ministration, you must be prepared before going to the pulpit. Spend time to prepare. See, when you stand on the pulpit to minister and you are not prepared, we know. And you are not supposed to go out and spew emptiness as a minister, as a leader, because the pulpit is to pull people out of the pit, like our daddy used to teach us. Whenever you are on the pulpit, minutes to 1 hour that you are there, people's lives are in your hands. How you use pulpit time is very important. Discipline yourself in the way you talk, discipline yourself in the way you dress. This year, nobody should wear slippers or sandals or palms to the pulpit or to the altar. Nobody should fly his shirt to the altar this year. Nobody should be casual this year to the altar. Treat the altar with utmost dignity, sanctity, and respect. I want you to know that as you carry yourself this year, is how people will carry you. Place value on yourself. I have said it last year in Open Heavens. Value is not just what you think about yourself, value is what people perceive about you. So be focused this year and discipline yourself, and we are going to enjoy the speed. Thank you, my president. Thank you, everyone, for staying with me. God bless you. I hope to see everyone by the grace of God during the 35th anniversary in Restoration. Long live Restoration Ministry International. Long live our president, Apostle Glory Udoema. Thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, it was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful time.